didn't even realize that. I thought we'd already started, honestly.
Oh, I guess I probably I don't know. So I don't know. We're started now, but
For sure. Turbo ADHD. It's the
it's the same. I don't.
it's the theme. It's the same no matter
It's
whether the recording button's on or not. It's the same.
it's true. I assumed that we might want to say some stuff beforehand, and uh yeah, I don't know.
I
How's
do
your
want to say this.
say what again?
So I do want to say something before we start recording. It's
Oh, okay. You seemed this past week a little bit concerned about the last podcast, and then you started with that. So it makes me think that you actually are
Are
not.
we going now?
Are recording right now.
Oh,
I can bleep that out if you need me to, because we're gonna keep
mm,
it in. Should I?
mm, no, that should be bleeped out.
Okay, that's definitely gonna be bleeped out. I sure hope I remember
For
to.
the terms of service reasons.
Oh yeah, because it is within literally the first 50 seconds that you said that.
Hmm. Yep.
Now people are gonna wonder. Good.
Yep. They're gonna
Doesn't
be like, "What do you
mean.
say? What do you say?" I do want to say one thing before we begin. That's just beep. Like,
So how's your week been? I guess we actually have quite a bit to talk about because we are both really bad at scheduling, and so it's been like actually 2.5 weeks since we recorded the last
has it
podcast.
been? Has it really been 2.5? Um.
It has been, yeah. And the way that I do it is I can just go through Thrag chat, and that kind of gives me a bearing of what's happened over
Of
the
everything.
past.
I don't even remember what's happened. Anything of note? I spent a ton of money on surplus yesterday.
A
Scares the
ton?
beat out of me.
How much were those jackets that you got?
So they were $60 a piece.
And how much are they normally? Did
Well, okay,
because
so that's
Trey
how much
did,
they are normally.
I'm not even sure Trey even knows the price.
I got them for so it was 60% off my entire order. So it was gonna be $240. I think I ended up paying like 100 or something like that.
Oh, if I would have
I
known
don't know. I
that, I would have paid
had to
less
pay
than
the pounds more.
$40 for one of those jackets.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's why I was asking about
I
it. Is
think
I
you
said, hey, I
communicated it in a
have like
bad way because you didn't give pricing.
I literally I put it I that's because I thought you guys would figure it out. It is because I said, hey, here's these jackets. I think they're cool. We should all get some, and I have a code that gives me 60% off.
We're not
Oh, it's like a
surplus
one.
autists though.
I know. I just thought that like you guys would like pull it up on the website and like watch the video and like look at it and be like, oh wow, look, it has 10 pockets, and then like I would have you guys sold on that.
The thing is
I
I already have one sweet jacket, the Swiss one.
Swedish.
Swedish, sorry. And
No, that's great.
I wear that one sometimes. Should I throw it on? Uh,
No, I forgot that everyone in that chat has the Christian upbringing autism, and so when someone offers them something, they get incredibly uncomfortable and immediately say no.
that is so true. Yeah.
No, I forgot that we were all raised the same, and that we all have that.
Yeah. And I didn't know if I could spend. And the thing is like right now I need to be buying filament for my 3D printer. So it's like I've been yeah, anyway. Also, I don't know if it was last podcast or this one, you had an A10, you had encounter with an A10.
Was that in between this podcast and that one? I don't know. That did happen though. Yes.
You
I
flew
had
an
an A10.
A10 into a World Trade Center.
Yep. I had a flyby of like a flight of two A10s that came by my like observation point or whatever on the border, and it fulfilled my childhood fantasy of having an A10 flyover, and um, like because everyone sees the videos on the internet and they're like, "This is the coolest
I
thing
follow
ever."
the Instagram. It's just called what, Burr Corp or something like that.
Yeah, or whatever. Where all it is like A10 and like Apache videos and stuff like that, and to have it happen in real life, um, was just insane. I was not ready for it. To be out in the field and randomly have two A10s do like, you know, low pass, high speed flyby, like, 200 feet above your head. Just not ready for that.
Yeah.
Um, it was like, because again, you see all the videos of it and you're like, oh man, this would be so cool. And then all of a sudden it happened to me. And, I consider my military bucket checklist complete at this point, really.
Really?
So yeah, because machine guns are down, rocket shooting's down, and now the coveted A10 flyby down
That's
is done.
crazy.
So
I don't have a my military bucket list is be in the room whenever they find Osama again.
whenever they're down in Argentina and find Hitler finally,
And I want to see the cybersecurity branch of the CIA.
don't we all? Don't
That would
don't
be
we all?
crazy. That would be
Did I tell you about the flag I found that says anti-government, but I work for the government?
yeah, yeah. I did see that. Where'd you find it?
It was just on the internet. I want it on like a T-shirt or like a hoodie. I need it on like a black hoodie on like the
Yeah,
back. I would rock that 100%.
yeah. If I don't know, if there was a civil war and you were in the military and you were
I
asked,
just leave. I just take as much as I possibly could and leave. I already know the question you're gonna ask me. I would take everything that I possibly could, and then I would dip out.
you
We
would,
we had a whole we had a whole plan for it in like 2020/2021 when the Biden administration took over, and I was on active duty in an infantry unit, and there was talk of like the
marching on
military
civilians.
becoming the military becoming like vaccine enforcement goon squads, and
You're like, I just leave.
um and our whole unit was like we had a plan. Like we as like the lower enlisted like came up with a plan of like if they ask us to do this, like we're raiding the armory, we're taking all of our gear, and like we're stealing everything that we possibly can, and like like we will move as a unit, but
Yeah,
like we're not working like we're not gonna become like some like
some
Gestapo like vaccine passport like you know Heil Dr. Fauci like goose steppers or whatever. Like we had a whole plan for it of like we're just gonna rebel.
Yeah, that's smart. I've never had to like think about that. Because I'm not like I never planned on joining the military or whatever. But then I was reading that book a couple months ago. I think I told you the auto or no the biography of Mao in China, and it a large part of it like details his military uh I don't even know what it would be called. He was like a thug in like southeastern to southwestern China, and he like directly opposed the Communist Party and the ruling government to like maintain control of the countryside. And
Hmm.
it talked about like the psychology of the military and his units and other units in the Federalist unit. And I was like, I in America, it's like pretty cut and dry and simple. We always seem to have like the moral superiority, and it's like easy to be a part of it. But if things go south, it's like you're actually making choices for yourself of who you're marching on and what you're doing. And whenever things go south, if you're on the losing side, there's going to be some major consequences for what you did. And I was like, I don't know, I've never thought, I don't know if there's classes for that in the military that kind of go over that, or it's always just the classes follow your chain of command no matter what, always kind of thing.
I mean, that is a class, but if you know your history and you know how America fights wars, you'll come to understand that no matter what, the reason that the American military maintains superiority and wins every major conflict that they engage in, um, or they may not win fully, but like even tactical. Vietnam was like a tactical inflicted on enemy forces and like body counts. Like the Tet Offensive was the last major offensive that the North Vietnamese could mount. Like after that, they were done. They lost so many troops in that offensive that they were effectively uh, not a like major threat anymore. The problem was is that everyone had been saying for like the last year, the American generals had been and the Pentagon had been telling the American public, hey, they're really not a threat. They can't mount a major offensive anymore. We're almost done. And then they did. They were able to muster up one last major offensive, but they were legitimately done after that.
Yeah.
They took too many heavy losses. So, like, if you look at it like that, like the reason that America wins wars though is because the spirit of the American fighting man is just it's like unmatched and unbeatable. And at the end of the day, the American fighting man answers to himself and himself only. He agrees with the men that lead him, and that's why he follows their orders. And sometimes he doesn't agree, but he does it anyways because like that's the military way. But at the end of the day, like if something super stupid goes down, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to go confiscate all the weapons from like the civilians or something like that." Like it
Yeah.
won't happen because at least in combat arms units, which are the actual like legitimate fighting units of the United States military, every single man, either consciously or unconsciously, understands like that he has free will and
Yeah.
that is how he's gonna work.
I think it, yeah, it's very unique. It's very, most Americans are very highly educated. If you're high school educated, you have at least some free will and you have at least enough brains about you to kind of think about it. And I'd like to think that if I was in the military, I would have acknowledged that. I just never had to think about it until recently, but or just because I read that book and it talked about it. But I think it's different maybe than like historic situations where if you were fighting in China in the 1980s or the 1880s through like the 1950s, there's a high chance that you had a very low education. You joined the ranks for like one of three reasons: coercion, pay, or promise of death, or something like that. And so it was like unlikely that you,
There's three hots and a cot.
yeah, or all three, yeah. Uh, and so it was just the United States military is very unique in a way that it has a lot of highly educated, capable, well trained, well funded people. So that, but that's I don't know that there's probably something a lot deeper to it than that, like how and why the U.S. government, uh, like funds and organizes the military in a certain way. But it was very interesting.
I mean,
Uh,
it's just I don't know. At the end of the day, I always say this is that some of the smartest people I've ever met in my entire life, not necessarily the most successful people, but some of the smartest people I've ever met in my entire life were all in the Marine Corps infantry.
yeah,
And
not the Green
like,
Beret.
what do you mean?
Did you say you
I've
met
only
some?
met like no, I mean
Uh,
I was in a Marine infantry unit. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like
right,
I'm
right.
sure. I mean, it does apply to like special operations forces and stuff like that. But like I'm just saying, like from most of the people that I met,
Yeah,
like some of the smartest people I've ever met in my entire life were just infantry brains, like sergeants and like mortarmen and just like regular, like grunt, like ground pounding, like knuckle dragging, like infantrymen. Not like generals, not like like colonels or like vast commanders at the Pentagon and stuff like that. Not that I met a ton of those guys, but like the just the regular infantrymen were like some of them were like legitimate geniuses.
Yeah.
and just woke up one day and they're like nerds and Stephen Hawking's type guys that like woke up and chose violence and to throw metal weights around. And so you just got these like jacked like nerds that really like killing people.
Yeah.
Super weird.
But then you also get the other
Nope.
end of the spectrum, like that meme that I sent you, that it was like me as an officer in the military who I told someone that I had a degree, and so he asked me in private where the sun went whenever it rains.
Hmm. Yeah. And then you well that's the other thing is that you have is that then you have like it's just like that meme where it's like have you seen it's like the 5'3" like Chinese girl like and she's like practicing like knife fighting and like doing all these like insane like martial arts trainings and she's like I hope my like CQB skills will protect well it's like my CQB skills on the battlefield will protect me when I must take down like the capitalist pigs or whatever, and it's you know it's like the 5'4" like Chinese girl or whatever, and then it's like the 6'6" like 300 pound like corn fed like Kentucky Marine with a room temperature IQ, and it's that like super buff like model guy like you know
Yeah. Yeah, captain of their football team has killed more than one person before the military
yep
by accident.
by
all
accident
all in bar fights protecting his little brother. Yeah,
yep
for sure.
doesn't it
Speaking
doesn't actually know that 2+2 = 4 but it doesn't care.
does not care. Doesn't knows that he does. He's smart enough to know that he'll never need to get past the fourth grade because
Mhm.
his corn-fed muscles, all 290 of them, are gonna take care of him for the rest of his life.
Yes, any problem that he would need to think his way through can simply be solved by bashing a rock on something.
Or threatening to bash the rock on something.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
and he knows those three or four things, and he is perfectly set for the rest of his life.
Mhm.
Cause like, how do I provide for me and my family? Bash rock, move big, ooga booga thing. How to protect
Yep,
family? Threaten bash rock or bash rock on head, and everything else is fine. How do I make friend? Bash rock next to other person, make friend.
exactly. And then there
Lift big
are
weight
plenty of
at
dudes
gym
that
with friend. Yeah.
there are also plenty of dudes that look like cavemen, and then you sit down with them and they like talk to you about like different like psychological like neurotypes or something like that. Like they like sit you down and like give you one of the most complex discussions you've ever had in your entire life. And you're like, who are you? Why are you here?
Yeah.
But
Speaking of little Chinese women,
oh
um, there's this thing that I think I told you about. It's like a YouTube TV show called Jet Lag. Did I tell you about it?
oh yes yes.
Have
Where
did
they like hide in places.
Yeah, did you watch it at all?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you watch the first episode or what? Just the
I
part.
watched I watched the first like 10 minutes of like the Japan one.
I can almost always rely on the fact that you're semi interested in what I'm sending you, but you'll watch the first 10 minutes of it and nothing more. Because if it's not like military guns, military surplus, military jackets, or
It has to be
trains.
incredibly autistic. I need to know the power to weight ratio of like Thomas the Tank Engine, but like his middle axle. That's
Right,
it. Like
right, right.
I need to know such specifics.
And
While I
so
do enjoy the
my
sorry the Japanese hide and seek, it just I turn off because I get mad that it's not me.
and so my particular type of, I have like a small amount of like travel autism, um and so anyway, I knew that you were gonna watch the first 10 minutes of it, but you weren't gonna watch all of it, which is perfectly fine. They So that card game that you saw in the first 10 minutes of that game, whenever they were reading off that game and everything, it can be bought. So I'm thinking about buying it for like $35, and then us and our friends, we can play it exclusively on the train system that goes from Spanish Fork all the way up to whatever. I forget where it ends. Um, and you can play the game just on that rail, and it would still work out.
Like,
Um,
what do you mean by that rail? Like, you can only
so okay, so
be.
so I don't know if they explained the game or if you skipped it, but the way that it works is let's take let, let's take the Japan as an example. Um,
Mhm.
it, it if you had a little bit of money, you could make it happen to where you pay like $200 worth of yen or $300 worth of yen, um, and you get like a month pass or like a year pass or something like that. And you can use like almost all of the trains besides specific metros in like those aren't trains, those are like metro systems. And
Mhm.
you can move anywhere in Japan for as long as you're there. And the game is um, you you get on the train, you pick a location, and then that train stop, you pick a point or 0.5 mile radius circle within that train area, and you have to hide in that urban area. And then what you do is they you know how they would play cards where they would text them and ask them questions, and they would narrow down where they were at. And then as soon as the hider can see the seeker can't see the hider, obviously. Whenever they get to that train station, the person that's the seeker has to stop where they are. They're typically prepared, and they're on a park bench, they're hiding in the forest or whatever. And there's rules of how you can hide. And then if you sit in that area that's pretty secluded or whatever, you sit on your phone, they get off the train and they still don't know where you are. And they have to hide and use questions through the city, like pictures of where you were at, where's the closest museum to you, or whatever else, to find where you're at. So in Japan, it's a cost a little bit more, but it's a lot more fun because you can choose to hide in a city center. You can choose to hide in a very rural place in the forest, like you saw the guy on that first episode, or you can pick like on a beach or something else like that. So what we could do is since we don't have a bunch of money, we could do a day pass or a 2 day pass on that rail system, and there's still enough stops that when we start, we wouldn't know where they were, and we'd have to start asking questions, and it would just be on that rail system. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Or we could pick the East Coast. It would just cost more because we'd have to fly there. And then we could do all of the rail lines that exist on in the East Coast. But I'm just saying we have a train station near us where we can use public transit to play that game that is near us.
Dude, this would work great as this would be great urban survival training as well. Or like, see, here comes my autism. Is it like this as urban survival training of like moving disappearing into like crowded city centers, like if the feds are chasing you or whatever, and like you just like poof, you're
Disappear.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great. And so yeah, we could definitely play it where it would be three of us seeking and two of us hiding in our group. um and it would be super fun to play that for like a day or two, because what they do is they do it for 6 days, and we could just do it for 2 days and have one hider or one seek two hider sessions. But once you're hidden, then the person that at that station that person was found, the other person then has 2 hours, or we'd have to augment it for how we play, maybe 1 hour, to get to where they want to go and get to their hiding spot. And then we can narrow down where they're actually at based on how the trains left and everything like that on there, and and,
Mhm.
and where they would end up. And, and then the hunting begins, or it starts the next day or whatever. But since they made the they made the cards for the game, uh, we should play it. We'll have to go over the rules, since I imagine none of you will actually watch the show to learn the game.
I'll go back and watch it all.
Well, not all of it. This is like their 12th season. That
I would love for like you and like the the THA try and find the R on the G in Thrag. You know what
uh
I'm saying?
uh Yeah.
Like you guys trying to find Ryan and I.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Yeah, that would be. Oh, well, the thing is you'd have to go watch the game because it your skills of because of like hiding in a city center. You have to, the part of the game that makes it so it doesn't last 1,000 years is you have to stay seated once you're done. Um, uh, but it would still be fun. It would still be a fun thing that we could definitely do because we text you questions and you have to answer the questions, and then you like when you ask a question, you guys have a deck of cards. When we ask you like, hey, are you within a 10-mile radius of us? And you would go to Google Maps, find where we are, and see what the radius says, but we don't necessarily know. And we have a map, and we draw a circle on that map, and if it says yes or no, we mark out yes or no, so we can mark out train stations. Um, and then once we ask you that question, you guys pull like a certain number of cards and then pick the one that you want, and then you can like curse us, you can like cancel things out, you can get yourself ways to slow us down or to confuse us or and stuff like that. Um, uh, so yeah, it would definitely be fun. We should definitely try it out. I'm thinking about
I
buying it.
liked it.
Yeah. I knew you
I
would
will
like
help
it. I
fund
just didn't think
the
that
future.
you would connect it. I should have said. I think I said we should do this with Thrag, but I just
I think the hardest part is going to be convincing everyone to take like 2 or 3 days off.
not convincing everyone. I think everyone's going to be on board, but getting everyone to be able to have a couple of days off.
Mm.
Um, uh, yeah, that's definitely going to be the hardest part, but I think that we can make it happen. I don't know if yeah, but then yeah, I'm definitely going to order it then. But I definitely wanted to try to. I showed Trey, and Trey thought it was cool because we that night that we hung out that we played the house party. I showed with the first hour we watched that first video, and he thought it would be cool. So I think yeah, it'll just be Hayes that doesn't want to do it, and we'll force
Mm-hmm. Hayes will want to do it. It's just getting him away from his girlfriend.
him. um,
Just a matter of
with with house party, what were you saying about the guy?
oh the Trey beat.
Yeah.
So that guy is like, so he's a vital character to like the game because the way the game mechanics work is that like if you get people drunk, it's kind of easy. It makes the game a
Yeah.
lot easier. So the whole entire premise of him is that he makes it impossible to get people drunk because all the alcohol is like with him or whatever, right? And then there's like a couple like items of alcohol like scattered around the um the thing, but like he's like he basically is the difficulty of the game because the
Mm-hmm.
game would be just breezy, easy breezy if you could just feed everyone alcohol. So he like he's super hard to beat because of that, and the fact that Trey just like I guess it sounds like Trey just walked up and like beat the crap out of him on his first go round, having like no idea how to play the game or nothing like that is like insane.
Yeah, that
Unheard of.
it was crazy. It was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen in my entire life was he
Can you say this? Can you say this online? Is this
I
allowed?
it's not that it's bad, but yeah, it was so funny and him looking down. Oh my gosh, it was so funny. But yeah, totally. I'm glad that I had him play it because it was now I can understand some of the mechanics and try to play some of it. Also, you sent me two more games. I guess
Yeah.
one was free or something like that. Is the Liar's
What was
Bar?
it? Okay, so I sent you like Liar's Bar, I sent you Buckshot Roulette, and I sent you Nuclear Nightmare. Which Nuclear Nightmare is kind of like SCP 5K. It's like similar premise.
I think I got
And
ruined
then
with
Buckshot.
SCP 5K because the graphics are so nice and the guns are so
It
nice,
is. It is.
and so like
Um,
any other SCP is kind of like
Nuclear Nightmare is like a similar game, like survival horror type thing, but like you're not completely helpless because you have a gun.
Yeah.
So buckshot roulette. It's the type of game that like you would play that like at least the type of game that I would play with my friends. So it's like one of those like indie puzzle like chance games or whatever, like Inscription and like all those other like indie games where like basically you sit across from a table, you sit across a table from a guy.
Yeah.
There's a shotgun, and randomly loaded into the shotgun are like
Blank.
6 shells, and like you know however many of those are like blank, and then like the rest are all real or whatever. So there's like, let's say there's like 6 shotgun shells and like 2 are live and 4 are blanks or whatever. So you have to figure out like how to, and you have like a certain number of lives, so you can only get shot like 3 times before it's like game over.
On
And then
Liar's
there's
Bar?
like on buckshot roulette.
Okay, okay, okay.
So the whole point of it was you kill the NPC guy that sits across from the table with you, and there's different modifiers and like items that like there's like a one-time use like magnifying glass or whatever that like you break it and then you can look and see what the next round is. So you can say, hey,
Oh, cool.
I
Okay.
want you I want you to do the next one, or like I'm gonna do the next one or whatever, and you can keep you, and if you're doing it on you, your turn continues and your turn doesn't stop until you get shot or until you put it on someone else.
Mm, that sounds fun. I always
Yeah.
like games like
So
these.
yeah, exactly. It's just like a puzzle game, and the Liar's Bar is the same type of
Liar's
thing
Bar
where
is
like
very popular. I was watching a sketch play it, and every XQC, all of them were playing it over the past month or so.
so Liar's Bar is just building off of the success of like Buckshot Roulette, because Buckshot Roulette came out earlier, like I want to say like beginning of this year or something like that, and it was like the same concept as Liar's Bar, and then they just gave it a multiplayer update like a month ago or something like that. So
Yeah.
then it was on Steam Winter Sale for like $2. So I paid like $20 and like bought it for like 10 people. So
Very nice. Did you buy it for all of Laddies?
yes, I did.
Yeah.
The same for Nuclear Winter and Liar's Bar too, I think.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I bought like
Have you played with them in a while? I haven't.
no, I haven't. They've all got like school going on right now, and like they're getting married, and like they all play together, but they play like Marvel Rivals and a
40K?
bunch of other.
Not
Yeah.
40K, Warhammer, I guess. The war
Well,
game.
it's
Because
War. Oh yeah, Total War, Warhammer.
Total War is what I meant to say.
Yeah,
And I'm not a Total War fan, and I mean
neither am
this
I.
in the nicest way possible. I like video games and I like gaming, but I also like have a life and I have like time priorities. And so it's like I want to have a job, but I also want to spend a significant amount of my free time doing my homework and working on like engineering stuff because that's like what I want to do for my career.
Hmm.
And so what that means is if I'm going to fit in running for like once a week or twice a week and my job and my homework, I don't have time to be grinding out a board game that has like 2 hour turns like
Hmm.
Total War does. And it's like I can see myself liking that game, but I kind of have to settle for Diablo because it I can actually get like a 20-minute gaming session in, doesn't rely on anybody else, and it doesn't require like 3 hours of meta googling, and I also have a life and talk to women. Um, just kidding, I don't talk to women. I have a life though. Just kidding. I have the
I guess that's a
ability.
lie there.
I have an ability and a skill to talk to women because I want to, but because I want to work and run and exercise and do homework more, I don't talk to women.
That's exactly what I would tell myself.
I okay.
I'm just kidding.
No, you're good. You're good. Also, what did you think of uh that Roman helmet with the nods that I sent in chat the other day.
Dude, I could make that.
Think
Cause
of
like
how
all you
cool.
do,
Now think of how
all
cool
you
that
take
that would
do,
be.
yeah, all you do is you take like a Centurion helmet or whatever, then you like take rubber cement or like cold
Drip.
weld or whatever, and you just cold weld like a Wilcox mount onto the top of like a Roman helmet. That would be super cool. I think so. There was a guy on YouTube that I don't know if he still makes them or not, but like the German pickle hobs, like
Dr-
the spikes that were on like German soldiers' helmets in World War I.
yeah, yeah.
So there was a dude that like was making attachments for those, but so it was the pickle hob attachment, but he was making them for like your like super high speed like SOF operator like high cut ballistic helmets. So like
Okay.
you have like your headset on mounted, like you have your like super high speed nods and everything else mounted, but then or right mounted on like your like Team Wendy or like OpsCore like helmet or whatever, and then you get like a pickle hob attachment for the top of it. So that you just for that extra like autism factor.
Okay. So wait, say that again because the audio cut out for part of it.
So it's a pickle hob. It's the
It's the
German spike.
The German spike helmet.
Yeah, it's or the spike attachment on the helmet. But there was a dude that was making them for your like regular modern day tactical helmets that like Navy SEALs and like everyone else uses.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm picking up. I get it. Yeah, that
So imagine like a full on operator helmet with like nods up here and like your peltors or whatever your like headset attached to it, and it's like a super high speed everything helmet, and then it just for no reason other than pure autism it has a German pickle hob on the top of it.
right, of
Imperial
course.
German pickle hob.
Imperial German pickle hub. And was there actually any functionality to that besides like psyops?
Yeah, so this happened in world this is World War I. So you know how like during the Revolutionary War and stuff, like the British were like the redcoats, and like everyone had these like
Identification?
brightly, yeah, everyone had those like brightly colored uniforms that were like blue, like bright blue and red, and like like they had these like tall hats, like the Queen's Royal Guards, how they like the Welsh Guards or whatever had like those big, and like the Irish wore like the brightly checkered like striping on their hats and stuff like that in all the wars previous to World War I. So the reasoning behind that was um, because with like muskets and like regular and like black powder weapons, black like because up until World War I, most weaponry was black powder and not smokeless powder,
Oh,
and
okay. When was smokeless powder like invented?
like the
When
right around the turn. Well, it came in like late 1800s, like turn of the century times.
Oh, but it
So
became used when? Like during World War One, it started to be manufactured.
World War I was the first major conflict with smokeless powder. So
I didn't know that
before
actually.
so before that, it's like, have you ever seen like a Civil War reenactment?
Yeah, there's always smoke proof
Yeah,
plumes.
there's like smoke coats the battlefield because the black powder when it burns from like the musket fire and like the rifles and everything and like the cannons and like all that stuff, there's smoke all over the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
And so it became imperative that you have like bright obvious identifying markings on your soldiers for like so that you could see your own
No blue
guys
on
during
blue.
like, yeah, exactly, to prevent like friendly fire and such. And then that kind of morphed into like shiny brass buttons and like all sorts of different decorations and stuff like that because soldiers always like to set themselves apart from other units and stuff like that, especially when they're better than other units or think that they're better. And so you had all these, and then like there's a bunch of like psychology and like culture things that play into it. But that was the reason for it for the Germans. But World War One, you saw at the beginning of World War One, you saw like German uniforms where they wore like stuff with like a bright shiny golden pickle hob on their helmet and like um bright like identifying markings on their like uniforms, like bright red striping, and like the French had like blue and red uniforms with like golden like embroidery on them and stuff like that. And the French were the last ones to change it, which is why so many of them died. But like they figured out during World War One, they figured out really quick, hey, smokeless powder is a thing. Everything we shoot doesn't make smoke anymore, and because you have rifles that can now reach out and touch someone from like hundreds of yards away, which is way more than what was previous, and you have like technology like has come so far. Now you're like trying to make it across like a mud strewn you know open area, right? These like trenches and stuff. You're trying to make it across these open areas wearing brightly colored uniforms, and there's a
Gonna
machine
get
gun
shot.
that
Yeah,
can,
faster.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
like a machine gun that sees you and can touch you from
What
way
machine
further out.
guns
And
were in World War One? Was it the rotary ones? What caliber was it?
so like the rotary Gatling guns were like the 1800s, like they were
Oh,
like
and with
modern.
smoke?
It was like legitimate machine guns at that point. Like you had like this is like the Colt
Civil
and like
War?
Maxim, like no, like Colt and like Maxim, like water cooled like stuff was World War One. So like what we know today as modern machine guns, that was when they made their debut. Like you had
Oh,
so
wow.
like the Tommy gun was directly developed to clear out a trench. Like that was the point of the Tommy gun, is that it was made learning taking lessons learned from World War One,
Did
where
no one
like
have plates on in World War One?
no one had plates. You don't see plates on until modern day. Like that plates are like the last like 10 years.
No chance. 10 years?
Yeah, I mean you.
Maybe 40? Because Cold War there was plates. No, Vietnam was there plates?
Well, no. So that's like Kevlar era. So Vietnam, you had flak jackets, which came from World War II, where because you had Kevlar, which they figured out they could make Kevlar vests for like bomber crews. And so you would put those on bomber crews because it protected the shrapnel from flak, from the like exploding air shells, right? That shoot down planes. Because like you don't have to have a direct hit on the plane. The shell comes up and then it explodes in midair and it sends shrapnel or flak
Uh,
everywhere, and that tears through the plane and like tears through and like messes up the wiring and the hydraulics and um, like tears through the bomber crews as well. So you had flak jackets, and then they started issuing them to regular ground troops in like Vietnam, and but like they were heavy and super thick, and so that's where you get like that's why like when you watch Vietnam War movies, you'll see like guys like moving through the swamp, and they just have like a vest, like a big bulky looking vest on, and then like but they don't have any undershirt or whatever, so you see like a guy in a vest with his like jacked like biceps and stuff like sticking out, and he's all sweaty from the jungle, and he's like and he's got like an M60 or whatever. That's a flak jacket, and that's a World War II invention that then moved to ground troops. And then the beginning of the global war on terror, they had bulletproof vests, but they were still um, that was just layers and layers of Kevlar. It was just multiple Kevlar layers, and so that's why in like early like global war on terror photos, you look at the guys and they're all like super. They all are wearing like really bulky looking vests and stuff like that. And that's because they have like 120 layers of Kevlar on
and
or
what
whatever.
can 120 layers of Kevlar stop? Like 308 NATO.
Kind, not really, kind of. And then you see the development of plates, and you have like
So like
you
2001
start
plates are in
like
the Global War on Terror.
early 2000s you might have plates, but they're like all they are like square pieces of like special like AR 500 steel or whatever that insert into like jackets or insert into already made like vests. And then if you keep going, you'll hit vests that are still Kevlar. Like you have like dragon skin armor was like a big thing in like the early 2000s, which was where it was a vest, and on the inside it had little round ceramic plates.
Oh,
They were
okay.
like this big or whatever, and they're like made, and it's like it looks like a dragon scales. That was why it was called dragon skin, is because
But it was
it's a bunch
overlapping.
of, yeah, it was like overlapping ceramic plates. But then it failed. The army's like the army did like a body armor test in um the mid to late 2000s, and it failed that because they figured out that, like, especially in extreme heat like a desert, or in extreme cold like winter, like
The
in
ceramics.
operating, the glue that held the ceramic discs in place would like fail.
Oh.
Or if it got like really wet, like if you were, say, I don't know, sweating because you're in a hot desert, like that could compromise the glue that held the plates in place, and then you would start to have plates falling off, and so you'd have like these ceramic trauma plates, these little tiny ceramic plates that were sitting all in like the bottom of your armor, like in your belly area or whatever.
Mm.
So that was when they realized, hey, this like ceramic plate idea is a good idea because it's lighter than like steel plates, because they were just pulling like steel armor plates off of like vehicles and like, making them for like people, based like changing the way they made them so that a guy could carry them. And they said, hey, this ceramic armor has like this idea has like some good merit, and that was when you start to see like sappy plates, which are what we use now. Where like I'd pull mine out, but like you have like ceramic or steel. Real people use ceramic. Only morons use steel, or poor people. And
So
um,
the trade off. There's like two or three considerations. Ceramic is typically one shot, um, but it's more expensive, and steel is typically heavier, but it can theoretically take two or three more shots.
so nowadays you have like multi-strike capable ceramic armor, which can take like the plates I had in the Marines could take 5 rounds of 5.56 allegedly, or like 3 rounds of AK or something like that, allegedly. So that was, but the whole point of ceramic is that ceramic is lighter than steel, and
Yeah.
um, the problem with steel is that you have what's called spalling, which is when it hits the steel armor, and the steel can fragment, and it will send like molten hot, like tiny fragments, and it can send them everywhere. And so like if you're shooting, like if you have your rifle up and you get hit in the plates, like it can send like flaming hot steel shrapnel into like your arms, your biceps, up into your like chin and face. And so you have to get special steel plates that are coated with like a specific coating to prevent that from happening. And that's why it's scary buying cheap steel plates, is because they might not have that proper coating. And even then, you can get them from a reputable buyer or from a reputable manufacturer, but maybe that batch has like an issue with the coating, or like they tried to skimp on that specific batch, and that's why they're selling it for cheaper. And that batch, the coating is wrong on it and stuff like that. I mean, same goes for ceramic plates. Like there can be batches of ceramic plates that, for whatever reason, they're extra brittle, and so they won't work as well and stuff like that. You just That's why there's a whole like you have to get if you buy plates, you have to get them from NIJ certified manufacturers that test their plates and that test their batches. And like there's a whole autistic like rant I could go on about that. But ceramic plates are also
There can't be
multi-hit
much more
capable.
to that than just buy from the right manufacturer that tests their plates, right?
Yeah, do your research, and like cheap plates are like cool, but like my friend my friend from work was like, dude, I found like this deal where it was like, like there was these plates that I found that were like $45 a plate, and so I bought 5 of them
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And because I'm gonna put like two front and back on each of my vests, then I bought one more to test it. And I was just like, dude, I guarantee you it's gonna stop like maybe one round of 9 mil if it stops anything, but it's gonna shatter after that. And he shot it with his pistol, and that's exactly what happened. And he was like, I kind of knew that it was too good to be true because it's a $45 plate. I was like, yeah, I was like, exactly. Like there was no way that that was gonna be anything worth worthwhile in terms of like actual life saving armor. Sorry, autistic ran over.
No, you're good. I didn't know any of that. I
Yeah,
but
so
but back to German um
Women.
well well um the World War One, they the well, now I want to talk about what is it, what the conversation that we were having earlier about technology and warfare, and how we need to have a stronger military industrial complex, and that means that bringing back non-cost plus highly competitive bids for Americans buying their protection. And but do you remember that conversation that we were having?
Yeah, and that would do all sorts of crazy things. Because right now, like, let's take the rifle that the Marine Corps uses is the M27, which is just basically an HK 416 that's like modified for the Marine Corps needs or whatever. It's
Okay.
like
Not that
okay,
I would
it's
know.
it's a it's a super phenomenal rifle, is what it is. It's like the final form of the AR-15 is the M27 slash
Wait, real
416.
quick.
Uh-huh.
Before you finish saying, don't forget. Hopefully you won't. Is it true that there is an AR-15 upper that is essentially uh 7.62?
Yeah, it's AR-10s.
So AR-10 model, does that remove the AK need?
Okay, so the way the way the guns work is it's all about shooter preference, but like the military gun world is very different from the civilian gun world because the civilian gun world is, hey, I'm buying this for me, or like, and this
Or
government
I'm gonna
government
go
gun
shoot a
procurement.
school.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Government gun procurement is very different. I'm gonna go that abortion clinic down the road is done for.
What?
I'm conducting the crusades
We're gonna.
because abortion is of the devil.
Oh no! That reminds me of something that I want to talk about. That totally random, but keep going, keep going. So
I
so
was just gonna say
maybe
like,
so maybe a good way to explain it is to say like the AK-47 um is tried, true, and tested. Very cheap because the Russians, the Chinese, and the Americans have manufactured them, and because of economies of scale, it's cheap and good. Right now, the AR platform is great, but if you had to give an entire regiment 7.62, it would be much cheaper to go the AK route than to go the AR-10 route.
well, see, seven. So when you say 7.62, that's just the so that just refers to the measurement of the rounds. Like AK
I'm
is
talking
7.62, but
caliber that's larger than 5.56.
so and see that's the whole thing is that like there is no because 5.56 is really just kind of a 22 round with more powder behind
Mass.
it. It's like
I
not
always
not
thought that
even mass.
5.56 seemed small. I always thought that.
It is small. It's because it's a 22 caliber round.
Is it like by mass for mass? Is no, there's no way because a
So
22.
seven when you say 7.62 by 39 or whatever or 52 or whatever the AK cartridge is, 7.62 AK is very different from 7.62 NATO. So like
Okay.
yes, like if I take like an M240, like the round that, or like the round that like a Scar fires, like a Scar H that fires like 7.62 NATO. That 7.62 round is way different from like the 7.62 AK round. They're very different rounds. Like I would have to like pull up a picture and like show it all to you, but they're not the same bullet at all. They're the same like caliber, like the measurements or whatever are like kind of the same. I don't even think they're the same caliber. Like yes, they're both like 7.62, but that only refers to like uh the length of the cartridge, if I remember correctly. It doesn't refer to like the diameter. It doesn't refer to like the weight because you have grains for that. Like there's
Well,
there's
so
so completely different.
so let's say for some reason. you want to have a unit or regiment of people that don't have glorified 22s being carried around. What is the better if you're a military procurement and it's today? What is the best option? Is it to go the AR-10 platform or is it to go to the AK-47 platform and to be in like a competitive desert environment?
So like there there's so many, like the way that military procurement works is that I want
Well,
the best rifle for the cheapest cost is kind of like
well,
how it
so
works. And then
so
there's
then
like different trade-offs.
so like let's say there's two. Let's say procurement for the best in that environment, and then procurement for the cheapest in that environment. What's the two?
Like
Is there an answer for both of those?
I mean, yes, like the
Is it
cheapest is just gonna be like you can always go cheaper. Like you could just get some like stamped like like high points. Like high points are like the cheapest guns on the market.
I don't know what that
Like
is.
they're made for people to have a gun. That's why they exist. Like imagine like a $200 like semi-automatic handgun. They're a piece of garbage and they jam all the time and they're like and like the reason that high points are famous is because they're used by poor people to commit crimes because they're super cheap.
I,
Yeah, that's
what
it. That's
name
it's
is there like a name that I would know? I've never heard this term.
High Point is probably the most famous one. It's just like how
Like a
so in like in the
is it a
1980s,
handgun or is it an assault rifle?
it's a handgun, but they also make like bigger like 9 millimeter carbines and like I think they make an AR or like a 5.56 style gun
So
or something
are
like
you
that.
talking about the manufacturing process to make the gun? It's stamped metal instead of like injection molded or
It's like
removed.
it's stamped sheet metal. So like they take like a sheet of metal and they stamp the parts out of it.
How do I not know?
Like stamped steel.
Wait, high point is what high point? I'm gonna look this up
Yeah.
later. We're not gonna look this up. I mean, we might, but I wanted to get to the other part. We can get to it next week. Um,
So
but no, but like the to up to the United States standards, you can't buy a high point for your unit.
yeah, exactly. So like by because that's so the way that the military does their rifle procurement and stuff like that is they say, hey, we have XYZ criteria points that need to be met. So like the 1911 when the way the 1911 was made is that they figured out fighting Moro rebels in the Philippines that the normal standard like 38 special like Colt revolvers that were the main military sidearm and were the like police and were like standard police sidearms for years after up until like the 50s and like even like 60s and 70s like 38 special was not enough because the Moro rebels would like take like essentially like heroin and meth and like opioids and stuff. They'd get super high and they would take like cords and they would tie off their limbs and like basically tourniquet their limbs before they went into battle. And so they get super high, tourniquet their limbs so they bled out way slower, and would fight in that and would fight like guerrilla warfare like that. And so you like would hit them multiple times with like your pistol because and remember if you're pulling a pistol in a fight, something terrible has gone wrong. If you're in a legitimate regular combat zone and you have your rifle and for some reason you can't use your rifle and have to pull your pistol, like something has gone horribly wrong for that to happen. Like you should never pull your pistol. You should always just kill people with your rifle because it's so much easier. So they like figured out, well, we hit these guys with our 38 specials and the revolvers are slow, they're slow to reload, and we're hitting them with 38 special and it's not working. And so like they went to a John Browning basically and they said, "Hey, we can't do you think that you can create a pistol that's better?" And so it had these specifics of like, okay, they wanted to look at automatic, so it became semi-automatic. They wanted it in a bigger caliber. The caliber that it was chosen was 45 automatic Colt or 45 ACP, which is 45 automatic Colt pistol or whatever. Um, So it had to hold more rounds. So it ended up holding 7 rounds in the magazine plus like an extra one in the chamber. Um, it had to have a thumb safety. They wanted it to have like a grip safety because no one trusted semi-automatics because they were brand new. And like there were all these different like criterias that had to be met. And like that's how US like arms procurement works is like for like the 5.56 like for the M4/M16 or whatever, they were like, "Okay, everyone." So the previous was the M14, which was shooting 7.62. Then the U.S. was like, because of NATO at the time and stuff like that. They're like, everyone in NATO is gonna have all their rifles are gonna shoot the same caliber, and they're gonna all be able to take the same magazine. So that if I'm on a battlefield in Europe and I'm fighting the Russians, I'm like fighting the Warsaw Pact or whatever, and I have like Belgians next on my right side and like Germans on my left, like West Germans or whatever on my left side, and I go and like I run out of ammo, I can look to either side and be like, "Hey, Belgie, throw me a mag."
Belgium.
Freaking hey, freaking Franz, throw me like Hans, throw me an extra mag, and like your wife is a hot blonde, like juice, and like I can keep shooting with like extra like I can just look to whoever's around me
Yeah,
like yo
redundancy in
toss
any
me an extra
environment
mag.
is typically great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
I
and it helps with like procurement because it means that like because remember we were funding NATO for like the longest time
we
until Big
were
Orange Man.
we
Well, we
are.
weren't like fully funding them.
Now we're
Like
like double
yeah,
funding them.
exactly. Like and so like we were helping them do all their stuff, and so like we could like make we could help them make it, and it just made it easier for everyone to have that. And so they're like, hey, this rifle it has to be lighter than the M14. It has to use 5.56 NATO and take NATO Stanags, which is the standard magazines. It has to have like select fire. It has to be able to do like XYZ, right? They set up all these different criterias for what it has to be able to do. And they say, okay, by meeting these requirements, do whatever you want to meet these requirements. And so then
so
like you have
so
gun
look.
development.
Okay, I get it. I get it. I partially get it. The so so the main question is separate from the fact that like human warfare is almost over and we're transitioning to like drones. Um, in a human battlefield environment, are you saying that AR-10 platform and AK-47 platform both have their place, and it's the place is mostly a cost issue?
So I'm not saying like the place is mostly a cost issue, but I'm saying that like they all
Is
have
there
their
an
place.
environment where the AK-47 is better than an AR-10 platform?
Like
Excluding cost, is there an environment where an AK-47 is better than an AR-10 platform?
excluding cost, like these days, um, I mean, okay, AKs are like famed for their reliability, but like these days with like gas piston, like short stroke gas piston guns like the M27 and stuff like that,
Yeah.
um, like you have guns that are just as reliable.
So at
I've
the
seen.
cost, if cost isn't an issue, the AR-10 platform can do everything the AK-47 can do, but
Well, so
uh,
modern AK platforms. Now you're getting into like the AK versus AR debate because there's guys that will always be AK and there's guys that will always be AR. Um,
so then
I
what
prefer AR because that's what I was trained on, and because I hate commies.
right? So um is the what well now I'm interested. What are like the top two arguments for AK in the AK camp, and what's the top two arguments for the AR in the AR camp? Unless there's only like one for each.
Well, the top. The top things are like because this literally goes. This goes back to like communism versus capitalism. This goes back to
Is this like
like
iPhone
this
versus
is
Android or like Xbox versus PS4, like a big
it is
long-standing debate?
it literally is. It's like Ford versus Chevy and like all those other things. It's like
Okay, we
they
don't have to
do
get into it then. No, I'm
well.
kidding.
It's literally they do the same thing. They do the same thing. At the end of the day, like they kill people, and that's like or they kill things. They shoot whatever. They do what you want them to do, but they do them in different ways. Like the Xbox and the PlayStation both play games, but they play them differently. You know what I mean? And and there's different just like how there's different games for different consoles and stuff, there's different attachments and like different purposes for different guns and like there's like all sorts of like different reasons on it and like different ways that it works. The end like the end platform is that I'm a big believer of shooter preference and that if you have the ability, you should like be able to choose whatever gun you want. And that's kind of why like you'll see it on um teams is that like the special operations teams is a lot of times they can kind of use whatever they want. Now they've kind of gone back to just everyone uses ARs, but that's because that's for the same reason of like I can run out of ammo and I can say, "Hey, bro, pass me something," and he could toss me his mag, and I can just keep going. It's this same thing, but like, you know, especially for the civilian world, you can pick whatever gun you want, and like, obviously you want to have something that you can work for with your friends and stuff like that. But like, if you're like a cop, you are gonna like your whole operation is gonna work differently. It's literally like working on a construction site or whatever. Is like if you're working on a construction site, you don't dig every hole with an excavator. Like some holes you have to dig with a shovel, or like you don't use an excavator to saw a piece of wood in half. You use a saw. Like there's there's different
Tools.
applications. There's different like tools for different applications, and because at the end of the day, guns are just tools. That's literally all they are,
Send fast
and
object down that way.
they're just the final form of spears, if you really think about it.
Of course, yeah.
And
Which is so
um,
cool.
yeah, exactly. Like they're literally like they're just an evolutionized version of like spears and bows and arrows and swords and everything else.
Yeah. Would you
Is
say
that
that
it's
the
just a way
bow
for
is
me
the
to throw a
evolution of the
rock at someone.
spear?
That a what?
The bow is the
The,
evolution of the spear, or the
yeah,
spears?
because well, spears, bows, it's all guns. They're all the exact same. They're just a different way of throwing a rock at someone.
Right,
And
yeah.
guns are literally just the final form of throwing a rock at someone. Because all you do, it's a hunk of lead, it's a rock. Like all you're doing is throwing, a small rock at someone super duper fast.
Right. No, I get it. I get it.
Like
But
it's
is
just
the
you're just
evolution rock, spear, bow? uh,
sure.
Do we know?
I don't know. I have no idea what the actual evolution is,
Oh,
but I'm saying like
I give.
it's literally just the final form of throwing a rock at someone. Because like even bows have like the rock tip, like the Indian bows have like the arrowheads are just chipped rocks.
That's what I was thinking. It was rock. I don't know. Anyway, very cool. I the that kind of answers the question that I had about AR. I guess that makes sense because isn't there like there's like carbon composite, really nice modern AKs out there, like or at least I see in
Yeah,
like Ghost Recon, but I don't know if they
like
exist.
Jim Fuller AKs,
Yeah,
or like the modern Russian, the like AK-102s or whatever, which are literally just it's just like a mod because the AK-47 has been extinct for like even in the Cold War they weren't using AK-47s, they were like using the AK-74 model
yeah.
and like the AKM and like stuff like that. Like
Is there
the
any
AK has
AK
had
that does 5.56?
yeah, yeah.
I guess I always thought that AKs were just like always the larger 7.62. too. Whatever.
It's so AK just refers to the style of rifle. It's just
No, I knew
like there's
that, but I
there's
just
AR platform rifles that fire like AK rounds, but
right, because the AK platform is better.
because the AK platform or the round is better.
I think I prefer the AR platform over the AK platform.
I prefer the AR platform too because
But
there's
for
all sorts of parts you can find for them, and there's
that's
all sorts of accessories.
for me, it's twofold. It's that what you just said, the like modularity of it. But for me, that's a secondary reason. The primary reason actually leads to the secondary reason, and if you could guess, it's capitalism versus communism. Capitalism means that there's options and modularity and economies of scale, which created the modern AK platform or the modern AR platform. But anyway,
I mean, it's just like there's AKs now that have like Picatinny rails on them, so you can
but do
mount
you know
all
why?
the stuff because of AR.
Capitalism, because of capitalism.
Yeah, exactly because of capitalism.
No, I'm not. Well, that's one of this is the way that I see it. There's probably a more in depth reason that explains it, but like the incentive structure, I would argue, is free market capitalism that has led to those that need existing. Would you say I'm wrong with that, or
Yeah, no, I think I agree. And like like Russian weaponry would have never evolved if American weaponry didn't evolve.
yeah? Do you think it was lagging Russian what do you say? They were
Weaponry?
the Russian weaponry was behind us. They were kind of following and kind of copying the innovations that we had.
Sometimes, and sometimes we were copying them, and sometimes like it's just there's so much. Because like at the end of the day, all weaponry again, it's just the final forms of throwing rocks at people. Like even a missile is the final form of throwing a hunk of metal filled with explosives at someone.
Yeah, like even a drone, same thing.
Oh, podcast over.
Okay, see ya. Have a good one, and we're out.
Okay. Yep.